The next item on the agenda is the budget review for the emergency management.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Just to briefly introduce the emergency management general fund budget. You'll find them on page C31. The grant fund budget pages are on page D8. General fund budget has $1.2 million in it. No new positions in the recommended budget. Decrease in retiree health care and pension cost of about $50,000, and then small increases in operating costs due to needing to cover costs like repairs and maintenance and training that are no longer covered by grants. In the grants fund, before we get into the rest of the presentation Vicki will be giving, I did want to point out that in years 2019 and 2020, there is no budget for grants and associated expenses because those funds are not known yet. We haven't been awarded that, I believe, 3-year contract as of yet, so you won't see any figures in there. That will come to you as a future budget amendment as it has in the past. And with that, I'll turn it over to Vicki.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Just to expound a little bit on what Steve said, for the most part, our general fund budget for emergency management and tech services have really remained status quo. Probably the biggest difference is in some of our small line items on the emergency management side due to the grants. We have seen continuously a decrease in grant funds from the federal level, and that trend is expected to continue. We're also, if you took a look at our fiscal years going out to 19 and 20, you might see some bigger increases that we'll be projecting and or requesting because there is some talk out there of either the grants going away altogether and or that they're going to start requiring a 25% match from jurisdictions. So just trying to prepare for that and project out as we do in the 3-year budgets. There is a slight decrease in our revenue overall, and most of that is really due to, one, some of the grant funding revenue that we may not see, and then also just within our technical services or radio department, never quite sure how much of their services are going to be utilized over the coming years. So we just tried to adjust that a little bit and tweak it for what we've seen in the past few years. Just to touch on our metrics, for the metrics, I could really only compare other emergency management departments in the surrounding counties. I took a look at Wayne County and Oakland County. No one else really has a radio department. We're very fortunate that we do have that in the community, so the metrics I stuck were on an emergency management basis. The first two that I used were very simple ones, basically just based on full-time employees and the cost ratios, and then also based on population. And if you take a look at those, I think we're doing very well in comparison to Oakland and Wayne counties. The other 3 metrics that you see there, I have no comparisons for the other counties, but those are metrics that are given to us through the state police. We do have a work agreement. There are certain items that we have to do that are mandated, and there are minimums on there. So that's why you may see if we have to do, I have to participate in at least 3 exercises per year. We have to hold so many preparedness campaigns, things like that. So that's why those are within those metrics. I'm going to move on now just in my part of the presentation, and I wanted to touch on obviously the Homeland Security grants. That $350 budget includes the Operation Stone Garden grant, for which you just did the budget amendment for, that just comes to Macomb County. That's generally $100,000 or less. The larger portion of the grant funds that you see in that fund is for the fact that the county is the regional fiduciary for basically Southeast Michigan. So that's where you start to get into the millions of dollars. And the way our grants typically run is that they've gone back and forth, but generally now they're 3-year grants. So that's why you see a lot of carryover from year to year, and again, you can get those high dollar amounts. Right now, we are currently running 2 fiscal year grant programs. We're under 2015 and 2016. Feds are always almost a year behind the actual calendar date from when we get the grant agreement, and then they generally run out 3 years for that. I know a question in the past, and when you look at the line items under the 350 account, Again, there's a certain amount of money that comes to Macomb County. Ours is generally $500,000. Basically, everything else goes to those partner jurisdictions in Southeast Michigan. And I think it's that supplies and service line item that you'll see that has several hundred thousand, if not sometimes millions of dollars in it. That's because that's the line item that we reimburse those partners for those monies that they spend on under the grant. So it's really not for supplies that we buy. It's for all the items that they spend under the grant items. And then lastly, I want to touch on, I know we're here for general fund budget, but I know when you reviewed the capital budget, there were 2 line item requests in the capital budget that I'd just like to touch on. One is the larger $6 million project that is part of the radio project within the county. That's not for the infrastructure or for the system itself. It's actually for the portables and mobiles that county departments use on a daily basis for their personnel. So for the sheriff's department, they're the largest user that we have. It's for the radios that they have and carry around with them, and then the radios in their cars. They're coming to their end of life, and so we need to start replacing those radios for all of the county departments. We are expecting that it will come under that $6 million. That $6 million is actually a quote without any discounts on it, but we are working with Motorola for discounts that will come in, and we're also going to open that up on a countywide basis to the local jurisdictions within the county, so we can all garner better pricing. And we did, as you can see from the capital budget, expend that over 2 different fiscal years. And then the last item that was in the capital budget was a camera project. Again, we were trying to space that out over a few different years. There is a port security grant that routinely goes through the sheriff's office. We help them with the administration of the grant since it comes through DHS and FEMA. And the one project that we looked at as a group, not only with the sheriff's office, but with our other law enforcement partners along the border, as well as Border Patrol, was to try and go for a project that places cameras that we actually control and operate in the county. There are some out there, but they're held at a federal level that we don't get to see ourselves. So that was the $3 million that went in for that project. We'd like to put in a total of 6 cameras over 2 grant cycles with the federal government for a total of $3 million. Ours would be a 25% match. The whole project is $3 million. I can give you an update, at least on our first round of grant applications for that project. We were not successful. Just found that out earlier this week. So we will need to regroup internally and see if for the next grant cycle, if we want to go back and try for that project. I am looking and have asked for feedback from our counterparts at the federal level if there was a certain reason why the project was denied. Because if it's something obviously they're not interested in, we don't want to pursue that either, and we'd rather pursue something else that the sheriff's office can use in the area to supplement their services. And that is basically all I have, so I'll be happy to answer any questions.
And we have a list. The first on the list is Commissioner Lucido.
Hi, thank you for coming today.
You're welcome.
Being new, I have a question. Is this where our blue coats are security guards? Is this under, are they under this?
No.
No, okay. Well, that answered my second question, so that's okay. I'm good, thank you.
Yep.
Commissioner Duche.
Thank you very much. Hello, Vicki.
Hello.
Couple of questions. You were talking about the radios. Is this that 800 megahertz business?
Yes, it's all related to the radio system that we use in the county.
Okay, so because those 800 megahertz, are we changing from 800 or are we staying at 800?
Well, basically what we can do now, there is 700 technology that's out there, so our radios actually will be dual band. They'll be 700 and 800 megahertz, but it's still all through the state system that we operate in coordination with them. And basically it's just the new technology that has come out and trying to keep up with the times. Our first radios were purchased in the county back in 2005, 2006.
Yeah.
So this will
It's
be
been
our
a while.
big first round, yes.
Okay, when we were doing this, we had one of the people from the Detroit Water Department here, telling us that the radios that they were getting and so on and so forth, that we had to sign up on were emergency type radios. Does this have anything to do with Detroit and the water system there and their radios?
Well, they're on the same system that we are. They own and operate their own subsystem just like we do, but it's all part of the statewide system.
Okay, so it's not just Detroit, it's the statewide system.
Correct.
All right. Second thing, Comtech. Is that moving along? Are we training the people in Warren? And where are we with the towers in the north end?
Sure. For that project that was started, we've actually had really the bulk of our activity just start in the past month. So we have started work at 4 of the 5 tower sites in the community. We're just waiting to finalize the prints and drawings at one community. So we actually have concrete in 4 of the locations. We're actually expecting the towers to be delivered within the next 2 to 3 weeks. All of the tower sites should be done and built by the end of this year. We expect them to be operational just because there's some synchronization that they have to do with the infrastructure, hopefully within the first quarter of next year. Also within the past month, or our renovation essentially at Comtech is done. There was very little to do at Comtech. So that's essentially done. And then the larger piece for the dispatch, the backup dispatch center at the city of Warren started within the last month as well. And that also should be completed by the end of December. So right now everything is rolling along extremely smoothly.
Very good. Last but not least, Selfridge. How much interaction do you have with Selfridge and all the departments that are housed at Selfridge, actually?
From an emergency management perspective and a radio perspective, we're very involved with them. They have an emergency management department on base, so we work with them. We've met with the general himself. So we do a lot of planning and coordination with them and their different agencies. They also have their fire department as part of the Macomb County Fire Chiefs Association, so we interact with them on that basis. They're also part of our radio system, so they belong to the statewide radio system. And then other components of the base are on the radio system as well. So from a communication standpoint, we're lock in step with them as well.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Keep up the good work. Thank you,
you.
Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Drollet?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Vicki, thank you for your presentation.
Sure.
I think for a little historical note, I think Commissioner Duje was referencing when the 800 megahertz system was being implemented in the city of Detroit, they tried to get Macomb County to pay for their system by claiming it had to do with the water and sewer department, and therefore our ratepayers for the water and sewer department should pay for their emergency equipment. I believe that went to court, and I believe we won in court. And it was turned out they were really just trying to shovel the costs off on our communities. But so that's a little piece of history I do remember, Commissioner. Yes. I guess my question just comes down to, again, the cameras that have been requested for border security, and that the federal government, you said, already has some of that in place. What benefit do we as Macomb County derive by having a border security cameras that the federal government isn't already providing? What extra stuff do we get as the county?
Sure. One goes to the location of the federal cameras. Majority of theirs are not in Macomb County. They're somewhat at the ends of Macomb County. They have them more focused on the Detroit River and then the St. Clair River area and going up into Port Huron. So we really don't have any within our vicinity. Second goes to is we cannot access those cameras ourselves. So if there was a situation where we wanted to see anything that those cameras could see, we can't ask it. We have to go to one of their agencies out at Selfridge and ask them to access the cameras for us and either try and relay that information to us, or depending if there was some operation or planned event going on, we'd have to position someone within their center. So the idea was, with all the activities that we have going on within the sheriff's office and in Lake St. Clair, that we'd like to try to get our own cameras that we could have access to. We'd like to have access not only within the Comtech facility, but have it back at the sheriff's office. Huron Metro Parks would like to be able to have that access so we could have that direct information.
And that would help us prevent what types of situations, or help us deal with what type of situations?
There's a number of different situations when you get into the border issues. There's contraband that comes across. It's very easily accessible. You have human trafficking issues that occur along the border. Many times, you know, when you see some of the videos that people have shown us, very easily boats, you know, pull up alongside one another and transport the people or either the contraband that comes in. So those are some of the areas that we were concerned with.
Okay, thank you very much, and
You're
thank you,
welcome.
Madam Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Carabelli?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Back to the budget real quick. On the D8, our page 7, the capital outlay, what was the reason for 2017 to be so much higher than 16 and 17, the jump on that?
That goes back, that's in the in the grant fund, and that goes back to the number of grants that we had in play at time for this year. So
What capital projects, though, are you talking about you're going to use that grant fund for, I guess? Because you're jumped up for capital outlay for what project, I guess, are you using that for that is jumping up?
that could be multiple projects. I'll have to look and see specifically what those are, because those would be for our offices within the county. But some of those go back to items being purchased by the sheriff's office and that, but I can get back to you with the list.
Okay, if you can do that, and also,
Sure.
When you talked about contract services, the change from 17 to 18, or the amended, even for 17, the jump, what was it that wasn't anticipated?
Are you in the grant budget, or are you back in my
Back in the emergency management
budget? And you want to know why there's the decrease from the 16?
From 17 to 18, the change.
Right, and I'm showing the 17 was the 16,345.
Correct.
And then we're requesting the 5,000.
Yeah, what did we do?
Sure, I just want to make sure I'm
Yeah.
answering the question right. The amount that is the 16,345 that's in the budget this year is to finalize the fire department consolidation study. So that study will be complete by the end of this year. We'll make that final payment, and I only need $5,000 that I'm
Okay, I
asking
apologize.
for.
What study was that again?
The fire consolidation study that we started now 3 years ago for the fire departments for Sterling Heights, Mount Clemens, Clinton Township, and Harrison Township, to see how it would look if they consolidated their fire services.
And that, I'm sorry, then the results you were saying in 18, by the end of 18, you'll have those results for that study?
By the end of this year, we'll
The
have
end of
those
this year.
results, yeah. And that's why it's higher, because that 16,345 represents the final payment to the contractor. And then in 18, it goes down to 5,000.
Okay. All right, thank you, Madam Chair.
I don't have any other speakers on my list. Are there any commissioners that wish to speak that aren't on the list? Seeing none, is there a motion to receive and file? Moved by Lucido, supported by Romano. Please vote on your iPad. Thank you, Vicki.
Thank you very much.